What I'm going to do today is talk about CONNECT, and CONNECT is our innovative whole person development program. And as I say, we've won a number of awards both within the industry and internationally for this. And I really want to give you hopefully a bit of a flavour of how it came about, what we're doing, and as I say, let you into, I suppose, a secret of how it all works. I do have my notes with me, as I say, simply because I'm trying to make sure I don't forget what presentation I'm in. But I'm going to hopefully as well demonstrate the results we've got, the journey that we've been on from wellbeing, and most importantly, how you can hopefully take some of the things that we've done, some of the things we've done badly, some of the things we've done well, and you can use them for your organisation. Why focus on wellbeing? And I think that is a fundamental question why we're all here today, why our business is really interested in doing this. Because most of the time we think about it, it's a bit warm and fluffy. It's a thing that sounds, it makes us feel good, it's nice. And a lot of the stuff we've heard today, lovely stories, and we'll all go home and say, wasn't that great that person's life was changed? But why does a business want to get involved in it? And I think, as I say, from our point of view in Graham, we'll have to really go back to the journey we've been on and show you the strategy that's been the foundation behind that. So as I say, I think very early on we realised that good wellbeing equal good business, and we were getting some feedback, positive and negative, that was coming back to us because of that. Like a lot of what we've heard this morning, we had lots of people living away from home, and they tended to make some very poor health choices in the physical sense, in terms of exercise, in terms of what they eat, in terms of alcohol consumption. And let's just say that some people made some very, what I would call dubious moral decisions when they were away from home. And as I say, that led to some relationship breakdowns and just that isolation that you talked about earlier on, away from families. But alongside that, as I say, we do send all of our employees off for a voluntary BUPA medical every year. And the feedback anonymised that was coming back from that was 60% of our staff were a heart attack or a stroke waiting to happen. So there were lots of negative things there. But on the positive side, we knew from all the research that was being done that actually there was a direct link between engagement and productivity. And there was another direct link between work that was being done in wellbeing and engagement. So our business sort of realised, and our directors, well, this is something that could maybe set us apart. It's something that could help our business. And so they said to me, right, Michael, away you go, get that sorted, as senior people will often do. And I sort of panicked and thought, well, maybe I'll just leave the building now completely. But what I realised very quickly was that no man is an island, and this has to be organised by a team. So very quickly I got together a group of people, some people from HR, some people from health and safety, and some people within our business who were operational, who were key influencers, and who were interested in this type of thing. So we developed a little team, and what we came up with was what I call a number of things, and I've got some examples here. So we started off by what I call our standard wellbeing framework. That sounds very highfalutin, and it's not like any of the frameworks you've heard here. It's basically a checklist. And what that checklist is was what you could expect to receive on any site or office in Graham, a basic standard approach of what anybody would do. You might call it a charter, you might call it a contract, but as I say, to me it was just a checklist, a very simple thing. But what we really wanted to make sure was all this big corporate stuff here is all great. Fantastic, and it looks lovely in bids and everything else, but what really matters to the person on the ground, that one individual who has a problem, whether it's weight problem, a smoking cessation problem, or it's a mental health problem, how do we get to that? And so we started to look at getting what we call them wellbeing champions, but somebody who was interested but who also had responsibility to actually make that happen. We gave the sites and those people responsibility, autonomy, and the resource to be able to go and actually pay for those things and make them happen and come alive. And alongside that then, like everyone we've heard this morning, we had a programme of education and support. So we needed to make sure that people knew what the issues were, and we then obviously had to be able to signpost them on to the support that was required. And we did that through a number of innovative media. We used little videos. We had our internal social media, and we developed something quite similar to what again some companies have had this morning, our own portal. So this is a portal where you can find out nutrition plans, exercise programs, you can find out where your nearest doctor or dentist is if you're living away from home. It's a fantastic site. It's an external site, but as I say, it's Grahamized, and as I say, for all intent purposes, people would look at it and say, that is Graham, that is us. And you'll see it's actually really, really popular. But the most important thing, I think, here was about measurement. As I say, most people think of well-being as something that's just nice and warm, it's nice, but actually we had to prove to the business and to our people that doing this actually made a difference to them and to us. Why are we spending all this money? What are we trying to achieve? Now, alongside that, we'd achieved IIP goal back in 2014, and we were trying to think about how we could attract more people into the business and how we could retain our employees. So this was separate from wellbeing at that moment in time. And one day I was having a cup of coffee with one of our consultants, and a couple of ideas just come into your head. Sometimes that's the way things happen in life. And writing literally on a piece of scrap paper, we come up with what became known as CONNECT. And CONNECT is, well, nice fancy term here, but our innovative personal development process. But really what it's based on is what I call the breakdown of the traditional appraisal process. That's where it started from. Most of us will have experience, or maybe still experience, what I would call an appraisal process where there's lots of scoring, lovely competencies, and it's beautiful. If you're an HR person here, you'll love it, okay? But actually the reality is how many people want to do that. Managers hate it, employees hate it, and it gets stuck in a drawer somewhere or a virtual drawer. So what we decided to do was to turn the world of personal development upside down. And so scores went out the window, completely different approach. And what we wanted to do was to get managers and employees just spending time together, having what I would call directed conversations about lots of things. Not just about what they were doing in work, but as well as that, what was happening out in their family life and what was going on. And we made sure that we would train managers to be able to do that and to have those conversations. And what we found, and one example I was just sharing earlier with someone was, one of our senior managers, one of the commercial directors, has 10 reports. And he said he started having these conversations and he couldn't believe the problems and the worries that were being carried around on the shoulders of his direct reports. The thing that really amazed him even more was 9 out of 10 of those problems he could solve. They weren't really big issues. And those guys were carrying that around, feeling upset, worrying, going home, and all these issues that were radiating out of that. And the power of just being able to have that one-to-one contact really started to see significance throughout the organisation. And as I say, we will talk about the results of CONNECT in a few moments. But back in late 2016, I was starting to reflect on what we were doing, all the stuff we were doing in wellbeing, all this stuff was happening in CONNECT. And the feedback that was coming to us in the business and with myself was that there was something going on here. There was a synergy, and we just couldn't put our finger on it, what it was. So we decided, let's take a bit of time, get some thinking, and we come up with what's become known as CONNECT Plus. Not very exciting title. As you can tell, I'm more of the Rocky genre here in naming things than Star Wars. It's CONNECT Plus or CONNECT 2 or whatever, but it does what it says on the tin, very basic things. But what we came up with was this concept of what I call whole person development. And what I mean by that is that you cannot be successful in work or in life unless 3 things are being maximised. First of all, you have to have the right skills to do your job. On top of that, you have to have the right behaviours or resilience. And finally, you have to be physically and mentally well. And whenever you can maximise those 3 things in that individual, they are going to be performing at their best and be their best. And the reality is then, if we can start to look at that right across a business and think of each individual and doing that, the impact that can have can be phenomenal. Now, what we needed to do was come up with a system that was going to allow that to happen. And so it was going to allow us to analyse where each person was against each of those areas. It was going to put a personal plan in place, make it actually happen, and then review, did it deliver what we wanted? And that's what CONNECT Plus is all about. So people get their skills through the CONNECT meetings they have with their managers and support they get from HR in terms of here's the skills you need for that job, etc. Alongside that, in terms of behaviours and resilience, we decided that we were going to put all of our employees who got involved in this through a personality profile so they could understand themselves and they could understand their others as well. We trained all our managers on how to use this personality profile, and we've got to remember here, our managers are just like yours. They're hairy, back-sided builders, some of them, and some of them, as I say, so they're not necessarily, and as we've just heard, they're not people who are in touch with their feelings a lot. So this was a pretty controversial, strange thing that we were looking to do. And alongside that, as I say, we then looked at the wellbeing side. So we partnered with an organisation of wellbeing experts actually coming from sports psychology. So this company had done lots of work with the England rugby team, with a lot of international football teams, and they were starting to look at performance within organisations and how that would work. So we decided to work with them, and what they did was each individual had a personal diagnostic about different areas of wellbeing, where they were. They come up with a personalised plan, and then they could access other support that they needed. So if they needed an exercise program, or the issue for them was mental health, they could see someone, and it was totally confidential. Nobody in the company was going to know. We paid X amount. We had a pot of money we gave them. There was so much per session, and that was allowed to be done with that organisation. So as I say, Connect Plus, as we'll see, as I say, when I get to the results towards the end, it became a real game changer for us in our organisation. And people were starting to say, well, I see how all of these things fit together. It makes sense. It's like suddenly when you're doing a jigsaw and it comes finally that you fit in the final piece and the picture just jumps out at you. This was that sort of moment for us. Now, alongside that, as I say, Connect Plus is to me the engine of what we're trying to achieve about wellbeing, and not just wellbeing, it's lots of different things within our organisation. But there needs to be fuel for that engine. So just like any organisation, we needed to have some initiatives that were going to actually drive these things and support them in the background. There's no point someone saying, I have an issue with physical wellbeing, or I want to deal with that, and our business then not having something in place to try and support it. So what I'm going to do very quickly is run through both the mental, the physical, and what I believe is also really important, the social aspect of wellbeing. And what I call this, in my own little way, is the holy trinity of wellbeing, because I believe that all of these impact each other. You can't look at one part of wellbeing without it impacting another part. So if you do something physical, it's inevitably going to impact someone's mental well-being. It's inevitably going to work social well-being, and unless you've got all of those three in your mind when you're developing something, you're not really going to achieve what you want. So in terms of mental well-being, we do a lot of stuff that's here this morning. I'm not going to bore you a lot with that, but we train our managers. First and foremost, we have, again, a structure, I call it our levels of intervention. And what I mean by that is that sometimes we've got a green, amber and red sort of structure that our managers can easily understand. So we don't need managers to be psychiatrists or psychologists or doctors. What we need people to be able to understand is there's something just not right with Michael today. I don't know what it is, and I need to have a conversation. And that conversation could be, I've just had a bad day, something's gone wrong, that's all it is. The next level up might be, well, actually there are some problems. They're financial problems, or their relationship problems, and Michael needs to maybe be directed towards our mental health first aiders, or he might need to go to our EAP, or he might need something else. And the third level is what I call the emergency level. I've got someone sitting in front of me and I'm concerned they're going to take their own life, or they're a danger to themselves. They are not leaving this office or this site until I have got that agreed. And managers get trained to understand what that's going to be. And as I say, alongside that, there's a lot of what we call education and support, but it's about this normalising the conversation. And we've heard a lot of people talk about that this morning. Again, Vicky was just talking about it there. It's okay not to be okay. And to get that message out into this male-dominated industry that we've got, where we've got this macho culture, and I'll do it harder than you, and I'll drink more than you, and actually I'll go in the background and we'll see where things go. What's impacted us as an organisation are people committing suicide. So 5-6 years ago, one of my best friends in our company, and I've been in the company for nearly 30 years, the same time he started, and he took his own life. That had a major impact on me, on the other senior managers, and drove a lot of stuff that we are doing. So we have mental health first aiders. We're doing lots of things in terms of HR, in terms of early intervention, because I think that's really important that you get in quickly. And we mentioned that earlier on as well, that you can actually cut down onto the length of time that people are off. But it's about, to me, a feeling, what people really believe about you, what they believe about your organisation, and whether or not you're going to deliver what they want and what they need. So in terms of physical well-being, let's face it, most organisations, when they start thinking about well-being, this is where they start. And we can be very critical of that. oh, they're uncouth, imagine that's all they're doing, they're running this. But actually, moving into mental well-being can be quite scary. People aren't really sure what to do, and they're afraid of getting it wrong. And this morning, if there's any message at all, you shouldn't be afraid of doing something and going wrong. We all do things and go wrong. That's part of life, it's part of learning. But actually, it's starting somewhere that everyone, your organisation where you are, is going to be comfortable with. So for me, if we're going to have a physical activity, it's got to have some key elements. Number one, it's got to be inclusive. There's no point having something that only the most elite athletes in your organisation are ever going to be able to take part in. That is going to just ruin it for everyone. It's got to bring people together, because it's not just about the physical side. And alongside that, it's got to be fun. You know, if I'm doing something physical and as I say, people sometimes look at me and think, oh yes, you look like you're really fit. I'm not really fit at all. I used to play football, and unfortunately my knee got done in, so now, as I say, it's a few lengths of the swimming pool is about as much as it can go. I'm not a gym person at all in any shape, form, variety, but it has to be fun. You've got to find something. And actually what made me in the past as a person be able to get into exercise is whenever somebody in my church who was out mountain biking and fell and broke his collarbone, and he said to me, "You swim, don't you?" And I went, yes, I do. Sometimes he says, "I want to go with you." And actually, on a Monday night at 8:30, whenever he was going to come and pick me up, most times I did not want to go, but I felt I was not going to let him down. And so I went with him, and we built a friendship. And actually, I was getting fitter and exercise, and you could see that was part of it. So we get involved in what I call these physical challenges. I don't have time to really talk about a lot of them, but I find a lot of the challenges out there are quite difficult in that they are very straight down this line. You have to do steps, and you know, if you're really elite athlete, it just takes off. So what we decided was that stuff this for Game of Marley's, we're going to develop our own. So along with this expert, we have come up with this new challenge. It's called the 100-Day Challenge. And as I say, we've just finished it about 3 or 4 weeks. It's already won an award, Northern Ireland Health and Fitness Award. But I can't go in, and I'm happy to talk to some people later on. But one of the great things about it is we've had disabled people get involved in it. We've had people 8 months pregnant getting involved in it, and all competing at the same level. It doesn't matter whether you're a top athlete or you're someone who has been a couch potato. It's different activities and doing different things. And what we've seen out of that is just a complete and utter fantastic vibe throughout the organisation. What's happening in the challenge, and looking up the scoreboard, and what are you doing, and as I say, we've been using Strava, and there's been lots of social media activity. It really has got people together, and the exercise was fine. It was just a simple thing over here. We've had some life-changing stories. Someone turned their type 2 diabetes around, but that's not what it was about. Actually, the stories that are coming back is we're in a walking club. We actually go out and we go for a walk together every Thursday evening, or we play five-a-side football now, and we're living away from home, and that's been difficult for us. Now we're doing these things. It's life-changing for what's going on. And as I say, we do have some of these other programs that employees have asked us for. So weight management programs, smoking cessation programs, and we've got lots of these groups coming together. So we've got cycling clubs, walking clubs, running clubs, swimming clubs, all these clubs. And as I say, but we're sponsoring them, we're giving them money. So they've all got their little Graham Lycra. As I say, I'm not a nice Lycra. Thankfully, cycling is not my thing. But as I say, we haven't got, as I say, budgie smugglers, as I call it, with Graham on them, as I say. But there is a certain thing, so this is completely aside. I do go swimming on a weekly basis, and I think any man over the age of 40 should not be allowed. When you go into a shop and there's budgie smugglers there, Lycra, someone should say, "I'm sorry, let me see your ID." No, that is not allowed. My children would be saying, "Please stop it." So as I say, there is a man, and we all have to stand. It's really embarrassing standing. You're all standing on Saturday morning waiting for the thing to open at 8 o'clock, and we're all standing. And there is a man, I found out recently, he's called Nigel. But as I say, my daughter and I, who goes swimming with me, we just call him Budgie Boy. So as I say, we're not actually quite sure, but he has an array of different Lycra shorts. And as I say, no, that's not a thing. Anyway, that was totally aside from that. So I say, enjoy exercise, do it, but please don't wear Lycra if you're a certain age. The last thing, as I say, just in terms of different types of well-being, is this social aspect of it. And I think, as I say, it's not just about the exercise here. It's really important, I think, for team cohesion, for people togetherness, and what I would call an identity or feeling part of your organisation, that there is that social aspect, and businesses neglect it at their peril. So a lot of the things we do try and focus in on that. So we're very fortunate, maybe I suppose, in terms of construction, in that a lot of our contracts have these social clauses. So you have to get involved in unemployed people and whatever, but opening the local fete or helping out this local charity. But what it does, especially for people who are living away from home, it actually gives them a purpose. They get to do something. They're giving back to the community. They get to feel good about it. So they do. And as I say, it seems to be at Graham's that we seem to like to climb mountains. I'm not quite sure whether that's a metaphor or whatever for life. But one group last year, one whole team decided to climb their local mountain and then come down and have a barbecue. And this group over here, well, they actually thought, stuff that, who do you think you are? They went to Morocco and decided that they would go there, and the company sponsored them. What's interesting about that is that 80% of the people who went there were employees who had been suffering from mental health issues, and that we were aware of, not necessarily aware of themselves, but that was a life-changing experience for them. There's something for them to do, and even the togetherness they've got in that group to come back, as I say, it's going to change them for where they're going, and as I say, we've seen a real difference in those individuals. Alongside that, I think construction's a job that we're so busy, life's so busy, that we're like ships passing in the night. So what tends to happen is that David, I haven't got my glasses on here, but it is David. Yeah, I might see David here and think, well, how is David? But actually, I'm so busy answering this email or getting this brick put upon this that I actually don't know what's going on or realise what's going on. So we have these, what I call Tools Down Friday, and it's a little initiative that we use just to give, it can be something informal, like have a cup of coffee. It could be a barbecue, like we see here. Some sites have run bake-off competitions, as I say, as well. But it doesn't have to be on the same Friday. The idea here isn't that we don't have the 16th of September and it's Tool Down Friday. It is, I'm on this site and actually things are going really well or things are lagging about. Actually, let's just have an afternoon and just spend some time together. And giving the managers the freedom to be able to understand and know when to do that has really made an impact. So sorry, I know I'm rabbiting on here, but I will try and finish quickly. So the results, most people will say, well, and we've talked about this morning, how do you know what the results are? How can you actually get somehow well-being? Because what are you actually going to achieve? And I think there's two levels of results. So there is the basic, what I would call well-being impact on individuals. So you can see here our WellHub site, 7 out of 10 employees are coming into that on a regular basis. No other part of our intranet is being visited so much. We've seen 50% increase in the intake or uptake of physical activities, but we've seen, again, smokers decrease, that heart attack, stroke waiting to happen, it's down by 10%. We actually started out in the BUPA rankings as second, and this is in the UK, we were the second biggest alcohol consumers in the UK. I think that was probably most of my team in HR, but as I say, what we've done by going through this is we have come down to the bottom. We are now the lowest in the last 3 years in terms of alcohol consumption, and we've seen 15% in those people who are overweight. So those, and there's lots of human stories in behind all of that. That's not just a statistic up here, which sounds great, but it's human stories and lives. And if we look at what we've been doing with Connect, really from the very start, what we saw was that Connect, our engagement went up by 20% in 2 years. We saw our staff turnover reduce down, so it's 33% lower than the industry average, and our absenteeism is 400% lower than the UK average for all industries. So we're seeing a major impact on what is happening here. And whenever we started to look at Connect Plus, we thought, well, we're expecting to see some better results here because we're now merging all these things together. And that was true. So 85% of employees said, actually, this is excellent. I understand how it all fits together. What was most interesting for me was that the bit they liked the most was the personality profiling. They said that had made the biggest difference to understanding themselves, others, their manager, and how they could unlock maybe a secret of what was going on in their lives and in their careers. And so what we decided to do is, whenever we were looking at our last engagement survey, we decided to measure that group against the ordinary population. And what we found was that their turnover was only 1%. It was nothing really worth talking about at all. But they outscored the normal population by at least 10% on every question. So, and alongside all of this, what was happening in our organisation was that profit and turnover was just going like that. So there was no coincidence as far as my eyes that our culture, our engagement, everything that we were doing around our people was giving a different message, and they were responding and giving back to us by what we were getting in terms of those results. So, as I say, a lot of people always ask, well, what's the secrets behind all this? Yes. What's the secrets behind all of this? And there are 6 key things that I would pick up on. First of all, I would say is that what we do is practical. There's no point coming up with something and doing it that is lovely words on a page, but doesn't actually impact people. And it's got to be in a language that they can understand. So some of the mental health experts we bring into sites are people that look like them, they can associate with. Down on the ground, those operatives who've maybe been through the same story as them and can try and help them. It's great to have best practice, and we can hear all this stuff today, but it's got to work for your business. I've talked about it being all interconnected in this holy trinity, and I suppose the secret of our success was that we constantly get employees and managers involved in what we're doing. We're having pulse surveys, we're having focus groups, we're asking them what we need to do, what's working, what isn't, and that drives that ownership forward. And as I say, our senior leadership just don't say, here, sign the check. They actually put their hand up and take part in these things and are visible that they're taking part in it. And that makes people else say, well, if they'll do it, I'll do it. So I'm on to my last bit, and literally is 1 minute. Whenever you're from Northern Ireland or from Ireland, one of the things that you do when you're a child is that you get shoved across to Sunday school when you're young, because, as I say, there's this thought that you're going to get some morality knocked into you. And I loved the stories that I heard there, and I still do. And there's a little story, which just what I want to end with, that Jesus told. And maybe I should say that originally I was going to be a minister, so as I say, maybe that's why I'm standing here today. Now I'm going into construction from being a minister. But one of the things was that it's about light in a bushel. And what is it? Jesus said that nobody lights a light and then hides it, a bushel really, under a basket. You don't hide it, but you bring it out so the whole room can be illuminated. And the whole thing about, I think, what we're trying to do here today and what we're about is that each of us have a little bit of light. We've got ours, and here it is. We've heard from everyone else, and they've got their little bit of light. And what we need to do is have that spirit of collaboration and bring that together, learn from each other, and try and find an industry way forward, which is obviously great today that we have the CIHT wanting to do that and go forward. So the last thing I want to leave you with, literally, is this quote. Just like Vicky here, I like wee quotes myself. And this one is from Mother Teresa, and I think it sums up what I'm trying to say here about collaboration. Mother Teresa said, I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot, but together we can do great things. And I think that's really where I want to leave it. Working together with all these fantastic ideas, collaborating together, sharing rather than competing, can really make a difference for our industry and be successful for the years ahead. So thank you very much.